It's time for Myth of the Week.
All right, so a lot of these myths are kind of based on some questions that kind of come into my question bank. There's people that'll come in, and this picture was actually from like a hotel that we were working on, and it's really bad.
Where'd you go, Bill? You there?
I'm not here.
There you go. Now you're back.
Oh, okay. All right, but yeah, sorry about that. So this is a pretty dangerous situation. These I wouldn't be doing this, like using the equipment ground as a neutral conductor as a neutral path. It's pretty dangerous. This is like only to power up like a Christmas tree. It looked like they were only using it for little stuff, but if you start to get some like large loads on that, like some chop saws or something like that'd be pretty dangerous. That metal could become energized, and it's a little dangerous, so I wouldn't recommend that. But this myth doesn't have anything to do with that. It's, basically, if you're just doing a service change, do you have to change out all the 3-wire circuits for the dwelling unit? And I've had this come up a lot of times where a lot of guys, when they're doing a service change, they'll just bid it in with their price, and they'll just tell the customer like, hey, we should probably change all your 3-wire out at the same time, and then get it all done in one shot, change them all from 3-wire to 4-wire. But it always becomes interesting because a lot of people say that it's required per code to do that, and that's like 100% wrong. It is not required, and a lot of people correctly answered that if you're moving the circuit more than 6 foot, then you're required to change it out. And so there is some validity to those kind of statements, that if you're just swapping the panel, it's in the same spot, and you're just reusing what's already there, then you could leave those 3-wire. And the reason that they call that a little bit dangerous is because what you're doing is you're actually bleeding current onto the equipment ground. And so there actually is a UL standard where I think they could go up to like 12 milliamps of leakage current before it actually becomes something dangerous. And so it's pretty amazing, and that's what they're still doing on some of the appliances, ranges, dryers, 240 volt mostly, and then they're just using that equipment ground as like the neutral path to derive their 110 circuits. So it's kind of a little dangerous, and they realized it a while back, a few code cycles back. I want to say probably in like '08 or something, or in 11, probably back in there. And they decided that they were gonna do away with all these 3-wire circuits and change them all to 4-wire. So then that way you have a solid path for your neutral, and you're not bleeding current onto that equipment grounding conductor. So, like I say, it's just one of those things that was funny. A lot of people, like David, was like, "Oh, this is ridiculous. You don't have to change those." But then there was actually people that were like, "Oh, well, inspector made us." And a lot of times, what they do is they just say, "Oh, well, we just changed it anyway." And oh, we actually have some football guys coming in. Awesome. Oh, thanks for jumping in. Football extraordinaire in the house. Thanks for hanging out. But yeah, it means a lot to kind of be able to go through these and kind of show people, get like King James, the HJ of Grapevine out here, to kind of tell us what he wants. And maybe that inspector that was telling you those had to be changed out was just trying to get something off his wish list, and not really anything that's a code reference or not. I'm going with 90.2b. If it was code at one time, it's code now.
That's correct. David's right. There's no code reference. I'm just going to tell you now. This is just an argument. Now, I will tell you this. It could be something that is in an ordinance, that they've come in and put it in their ordinance. If you do so much to the house, they may have an ordinance. If you change out the service panel, they want you to change out the 3-wire circuits. That could be in the ordinance. Otherwise, you don't have to, because it's not in the code. There's nowhere that states that. Now, I will give you a little insight, sort of like when if you go and look at ocean, if I'm not mistaken, I think it's 50%. If I'm not mistaken, I'd go back and look to be 100% sure, but it's back in there where they deal with March 15th, 1972, and then April 16th, 1981. Those are the two dates that you're going to know, and that's when you started seeing them come in, and they skipped from 71 to 75, and then it was 3 years after that. But they had a 4-year skip there. Well, that's because OSHA was wanting the NFPA to come in and get serious about taking care of commercial industrial. And they have a thing in there that says if you do a remodel where you're going to redo 50% or more of the area that's going to be there, then you had to bring it up to the current code at that time. Okay. Right. And that falls in. You'll remember me talking about that a while back, where I showed the text of OSHA, and I showed those exact dates and the language that they stated having to redo that. Okay. But for this, this in here is for a dwelling unit. So this would have to be something that would have to be in an ordinance from the city, the state, or somebody, county. It'd have to be something like that they set up to where they're telling you here for these older homes and everything, if you bring the service up, then we want all the 3-wire circuits brought up. Okay. True. And then it could be where they don't even say, they say all the electrical system has to be brought up. You see what I'm saying? So
and big shout out to my buddies out in Cali. They said in Cali it's wonky. You could do one in this county over here, and it's different than this county over here, and then Title 24 applies over here, and so they were telling me all kinds of stuff. You might have to have a sprinkler system installed just for changing out electrical panel and just all that stuff. So it was a lot of good comments, a lot of the emergency service disconnect comments, which that kind of further complicates some things if you're changing your bonding points and you're bringing a 4-wire service entrance and stuff like that, and then trying to make that what these are tied into a sub panel. Well, now you can't do that anymore. They have to be isolated. So
sure. I don't know what the state requirement is here in Texas. I think in Fort Worth at one time they had it in there. If you have a residential unit that's over 6,000 square foot, you had to have a sprinkler system.
True.
So, and that could still be with the state. I haven't checked. It's been so long. But that right there is an amendment to the code. What they won't, in certain areas. And the same thing could happen here. It would not be a foregone conclusion if a state come in and amended something there and said, you do this type of change out, we want this in there. But as far as the code is concerned, the code does not address this.
We've even seen some jurisdictions say the concrete and case electrode can be smaller than number 4 too. So.
Oh yeah, sure. Well, and the reason that is because they get these people on here that say, "Oh, you can go smaller." Well, no, you can't. First of all, I've already. It's interesting because I submitted to Code Making Panel 5, I think is Article 250, and I wanted clarification, and they said you go smaller, but they did not reference what I put in there, the material that I submitted from previous code making panels that said even the number 6 is considered too small. So what I did is I resubmitted, and I said I want it stated from the code making panel that you disagree with the other code making panel, because what they stated is different from what you're saying now. And apparently you're not going back looking at the test data or anything. This is just y'all's opinion. So I want a statement from y'all. I don't care if you say we can go smaller. That's fine with me. But I think if they do, you're going to see some states come back and say you can't go smaller than number 4, which is funny because you had Dad was explaining what took place, and he explained why they got out of made electrodes and all of that took place. And Lloyd
Right.
Mills come in and said, "Well, the way the code reads, you can go smaller." He goes, "Okay." He goes, "Well, let me ask you." He goes, "I come in your area, you gonna let me go smaller?" And he goes, "No, we won't let you do that." So
Yeah.
it just goes to show you're arguing something that you won't even allow.
Oh
I
yeah.
mean, that makes no sense, and all these keyboard warriors want to do good, saying, "Oh, well, that's not what the code is." Well, the thing is, you're not going to allow it, but yet you're saying we're all wrong, but you won't
You're
allow it.
you're
You know,
talking about some really weird stuff. Like I'm pretty sure that a lot of these buildings are engineered and they have engineering, and I've never seen an engineer allow anything smaller than number four. And
I've
then when
never
you go
seen it.
look at it, and then when you go look at it too, how are you gonna buy off that service is never gonna go larger than whatever you're saying it is, if 100 amps or whatever, that your service entrance is never gonna be increased, you know?
Well,
It's
sure,
it's it's crazy.
and if you think about it, when they size based on what the service is for the grounding electroconductor. It's not done. Uh, uh, Based on what the calculated load and everything is. It's what's there, that what that service is rated for,
True.
and and the conductors coming into it. That's how you go about sizing it. And it's like I've
True.
always said, if you're sizing to the uh, metal water pipe or you're sizing the building steel, it's based on the conductors. Everything else, it already gives you a size. It tells you for the ground rod number 6, concrete encased electrode number 4, and for ground ring number 2.
True.
That's done, and that's in
Yeah.
256.6 A, B, and C, and then that refers you back to 250.52 A, 2, 3, 4, and then A5. Okay,
True.
so
Right on.
or
Sorry.
really
Sorry
3.5.
to make you go down that little rabbit hole real quick.
Oh, that's okay. I don't mind. But just sort of top this off right here, that there's no code section. And that's why David was saying right there, I want to know the code section. Well, there isn't one. Not that I'm aware of. And if there is,
True.
somebody can correct me in the comments, but I've never seen it and I've never
So
heard of that. So
So what it comes down to is what we typically call out in the field the grandfather clause. There really is no such thing as a grandfather clause, but what it comes down to is 90.2b, where it says if it passed a code at one time and you didn't change it, then it's considered passing our current code. So, and like I say, unless you maybe change 50% of it, or you move it 6 foot, or there's some other criteria that could come into play. If you're, like moving it 6 foot and you have to change it to arc fault, different stuff like that. So you just have to be careful. And like I say, if it's in a laundry area, then it should probably be on a GFCI too. So,
well, and that goes back to what I said. That's going to be an amendment that the state, uh, city, or county, or somebody that's put together, that they want to see done if you're doing certain things.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, 100%.
all right.
Well, myth is busted.